Welcome, YouTube, to another episode of the PJ Hoop Podcast. I'm your host, PJ, and on today's episode, we're going to do something a little different. Usually at the end of the episode, I give you a preview of what the next episode is going to entail, but this time around, I think I want to give you guys a preview of what's coming next episode. So next episode will be episode 7, and on that episode, we'll finally really be diving into actual NBA stuff. So starting next week, I will be doing my season previews for the Southwest Division. And from this episode on, I'll be recording every week instead of every 2 weeks. We're going to be recording every week from this point on until the end of the NBA season, and I'm beyond excited. So next week I'll be previewing the Southwest Division, which includes the Miami Heat, the New Orleans Hornets, the Washington Wizards, the Orlando Magic, and the Atlanta Hawks. So if you're interested in seeing what I have to say about those teams, I would check out next week's episode when I go deep dive on the Southwest Division. So today's episode, we're going to start off with giving a little shout out to an NBA player that just recently retired. Joe Harris recently retired. If you guys don't know who Joe Harris is, he was an NBA sharpshooter. For his career, he shot 48% from the field, 44% from three. And he led the league in three-point percentage twice when he was with the Brooklyn Nets. And I feel like he averaged a respectable numbers throughout his career. He averaged 10 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. So I just wanted to take a moment and give a shout-out to Joe Harris because, you know, he's a sharpshooter, you know. So I got to show some love to the sharpshooter, who Joe Harris was. So he retired. Another thing that I thought was interesting when it came to retirement is that the Lakers are going to be retiring Michael Cooper's jersey. And if you're not familiar with who Michael Cooper is, he was an essential player, a part of the Showtime Lakers. I'm not going to go crazy deep dive on who Michael Cooper is and what he's about, but the Lakers are going to be retiring his jersey, and I think that's in January is when they'll be doing that. So for my Laker fans out there, something for you guys to look forward to is literally Michael Cooper doing that. Some other news that I kind of picked up on, and I've been following these two players for over a year now, almost 2 years now, but recently, a couple episodes ago, I kind of spoke a little bit. I actually did a pretty deep dive on Dybantsa and Tyran Stokes, the number 1 rated player in class of 25 and the number 1 player in class of 26. So Dybantsa is actually officially, I said it actually, I think 2 episodes ago. I let you guys know that he's going to be picking the school he wants to go to in February. Well, he just announced what schools he's going to be visiting and the dates. So I kind of just wanted to give those to you guys to kind of let you guys know where his mind is somewhat at. So he's going to be visiting Kansas State on August 30th and September 1st. He's going to be visiting Kansas September 6th and September 8th. He's going to be visiting UNC, University of North Carolina, September 20th and September 22nd. He's going to be visiting University of Alabama, September 27th and September 29th. He's going to be visiting Baylor, October 4th to October 6th. He's going to be visiting BYU from October 11th to October 13th. And don't quote me on this, but I think he's from Utah, or I think his prep school is in Utah. So BYU, I know, is kind of high on that list as a forecast school. So that's him. Tyran Stokes also announced that he's going to be visiting his native. He's going to be visiting the Louisville Cardinals, and that's going to be coming up. He never decided. I didn't see what day exactly it was, but I know that's coming up. So he's a native of Louisville, Kentucky. Tyran Stokes, the number 1 player in class of 26. And I'll leave probably my link in the description of 2 episodes when I talked more about both of those players, because both of those players were on the same AAU team over this last summer, and I did like a crazy deep dive on that game and what they did in the Peach Jam. So if you want to hear more about those players, again, I'll leave the link in the description. The next thing I want to talk about is actually last episode I let you guys know that there were a bunch of hoop academies coming up, and one academy that recently happened was the Elite 24 camp. And I'll leave the link in my bio as well if you want to because I kind of went over who were the attendees, who was attending that camp in my last episode, but also at the Formula Zero camp as well. I'll leave, again, the link in the description so you guys can get more content if you want to know more about it. But I just wanted to go over some of the people that stood out for me at the Elite 24 camp and also who stood out to me at the Formula Zero camp. Okay, so at the Elite 24 camp, a new kid. I didn't know who he was. He stood out, and he happened to win MVP at the camp. His name is Shon Abaev. He's a 6'7" point forward. He's lefty. He actually won the Elite 24 camp MVP. And he's He's the number 44th rated kid out of in class of 2025. He's undecided right now. And what I kind of wrote out and took from what I noticed from his game was I felt that he was a very polished scorer, in my opinion. He's a very impressive passer. He seemed like he knew how to like command the ball, and he kind of slowed down the offense a little bit, to be honest. Okay, he kind of took away from the flow of the offense. He's an ISO scorer, but he was a straight killer. I'm gonna give him respect because he was a killer. But he could score in a multitude of ways. He had a lot of different dimensions to his game, and that's a player I would keep on your radar if you don't have him. I think right now he's a low 5-star, high 4-star player. Like I said, he's rated 44th in the class. So he'll be on my radar. And during that, I believe it was the championship game, he had 22 points, 7 rebounds, and 10 assists. But he was hooping. Like I said, he was being a killer. I even seen Brandon Jennings I think he was at the camp or something, and he said the same thing. He was like, yeah, he's a killer. And he was. I watched him. So that's a kid to keep on your radar. And shout out to Shon. Shout out to him, bro, because he was performing. But the schools, so far he has 26 offers from a lot of schools. Some of the notable schools that I kind of took notice that kind of took a look at him and had them on their recruiting ideas is Kansas is a blue blood school that had him. Some other smaller schools is Oregon, Arizona State, USC, Georgia, Auburn, Daytona, and University of Tennessee. Arizona State being the most recent, which he took in June. But yeah, that's a player to keep on your radar. I don't know if he's going to become something, but again, it's good just to keep your mind open. As basketball fans, at least I can speak for myself. Like as a basketball fan, I like to keep my mind open. He may not be nobody, he may be a nobody, but it's good to me, in my opinion, just to keep that open mind because I've had players where will say I know the player, and then he doesn't really come to fruition for everybody else until he gets to the league or until like he breaks out in college or something. So to me, it's fun to be able to at least try to guess or predict how good this player is going to be, or like have a player on my radar and then watch him blossom. Like to me, that's exciting. So that's him. That's Shon. So shout out to Shon. So at the Formula Zero camp, co-MVPs was VJ Edgecomb and Jalil Bethea. I think I said Jalil's last name wrong, and I'm sorry. Again, I'll leave the links and the names in the description. I always botch names, so I'm sorry. But, so, those are two players, and I actually talked about them a lot in my last pod, and even VJ Edgecomb and Jalil, I've been talking about them throughout actually a couple of my pods, actually really deeply. But yeah, so they both won. They won co-MVP at the Formula Zero camp, which took place in Phoenix, Arizona last week. And Damian Lillard, I think, was hosting the camp. And so my big takeaway was, VJ Edgecomb, I've talked about him in past pods, but I'm going to give him a little love right now. VJ Edgecomb, to me, was the best player on the Bahamas national team. On that team, we had DeAndre Ayton, Eric Gordon, and I'm missing a player. There's another NBA player that was on that national team, but I can't remember who. But if you know who, drop it in the comments for me. I forgot who else was on it, but I know those two players for sure. But he was the best player on that team. He's going to be going to Baylor. He's a highly rated kid. And so, yeah, I'm not going to go too crazy in VJ Edgecomb because I talked about him a lot. I've been talking about him a lot in a lot of pods that I've done. So, not going to go too crazy. But I do want to talk a little bit more about Jalil and give him a little bit more love because I feel like I haven't really showed him much love yet, but I've known about him and I've even hinted on him a little bit in other pods. So he's 6'4". He's the number 7 rated player in class of 25. He's going to go on to University of Miami, the Hurricanes. And what I've actually wrote out about him and what I really liked about him is, I said he put up very efficient numbers in the EYBL, which EYBL is like one of the best tournaments, if not the best tournament high schoolers, perform in when it comes to comp and whatnot. He knocked down 41% of his threes. He's a shooter, great player. He shot 86% from the free throw line, which lets you know he's probably going to be a great shooter, or at least a very good one. He also shot 59% on his 2-pointers at the EYBL. And he's a really good scorer, man. I like his size. He's 6'4". And I'm excited to watch him at Miami next season. And he is also somebody that is on my my early season top 25 players to look out for in college. He's on there. And I've talked about him briefly in other pods, but I just wanted to briefly give you guys a little bit more information on Jalil, because I think he's probably going to be, top 15, top 16 pick in next year's draft, depending on how he performs at Miami, of course. But he's a very ultra-talented kid, man. I also wanted to give a shout-out, another player that was at the Formula Zero camp. His name is Asai Newell. 6'9". He'll be a freshman at University of Georgia. He's ranked the number, I think, 17th player. Actually, number 19th player in class of 2024. 6'9", lefty. And he was hooping at the tournament. It caught my eye. I wasn't familiar of who he was, but he really caught my eye. I kind of took time to kind of just watch a little bit more film on him after I watched him at the Formula Zero. And I'm interested to see how he performs at University of Georgia. So he's also on my list, my top 25 players to look out for in college basketball. Those are players I'm going to be watching. Doesn't mean these are like the best 25 players in college basketball. Don't mean anything. These are just players that me personally, I'm going to be trying to spend a lot of time and paying attention to and watching how they grow in college. So I wanted to give a shout out to him because I felt like he performed really well. So another sleeper kid that I didn't know about, he really stood out to me too at the camp. His name is Trent Perry. He's 6'4", number 4 rated point guard in class of 25, number 35th overall player in the class. He's going to be a freshman at UCLA, and he's an outstanding shooter. Great shooter. His true shooting percentage was 74%. And he shot 42% on threes in high school, which is great. But he grew to 6'4". He grew to 6'4", and he plays with such pace. To me, he doesn't overthink his passing. He seems pretty knowledgeable. So I'm interested to see how he does at UCLA. I wonder if he was the number 4 rated point guard because of he wasn't tall enough. Like, I'm interested to see, So he's somebody that's going to be on my for sure my watch list. He wasn't on my top 25 watch list, if I'm being quite frank and honest with you guys. But when I give it to you guys, the raw list right before college basketball season start, he might be on that list. So remember the name Trent Perry. Keep your eyes out for him at UCLA. Another player, a lot of people may be familiar with him. I've talked about him also briefly before. I want to give him some love because he was also at the Formula Zero camp. Is Jasper Johnson, lefty, number 12 rated kid in class of 2026. He was doing his thing. He was hooping. He was hooping at the camp. I'm not going to go too crazy about him again. I kind of gave him more of a shout out too in, I believe, last episode. But Jasper Johnson's a lefty, scorer. He has game. Jasper Johnson got game. He'll be a senior this upcoming year. So I'm interested to see what he does in high school because, honestly, he wasn't on my radar until this summer. So he got on my radar at the EYBL. So I'm going to be watching, see how he does his senior year. So he's somebody on my radar. He hasn't announced either what college he's going to yet. I think probably he's going to go to Kentucky. We'll see. I know he's also considering North Carolina, Alabama, and he's supposed to make his decision on September 5th. So I'll be paying attention to what school he decides to go to. So now, I gave the shout-outs. We talked about that stuff. Now, we're going to get to the real stuff. We're going to talk about the NBA schedule. That was newly released. I actually talked about it in my last pod. I was like, you know what? It's probably going to be released this week. I'll talk about it at the next episode. So, again, like I said, I'll leave the description down below for my last pod if you want to check out what I had to say. And then also I'm going to leave a link in the description for the EYBL one as well if you want to hear more about, like, AJ Dybantsa, Tyran Stokes, and all those kids that was at that camp. I did a pretty good dive on some of those players on those teams. But let's get to the NBA schedule. NBA released the schedule last week. I took a lot of good notes, I believe, on what happened and just information I peeled back from it. Some of the information you may know, some of it you may know, some of it may just be a refresher. But this is for the people that may not have the time to keep up with every little detail, because I understand life happens. So I just want to give you guys some really good information that I found interesting. And leave comments below if you feel like I missed out on something or you noticed something that I didn't notice, or even let me know what I said that interests you and something you may not have known about, So let's dive right into it. I just want to kind of go over first and foremost the teams that have the hardest schedule to begin with in October and November. Those 5 teams, and I'm going to give you guys to them in order. Number 1 is the Phoenix Suns, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Dallas Mavericks, the Warriors, and OKC. And you'll see, as I go down this list, you'll see who they kind of did OKC kind of dirty, if you ask me. They kind of did OKC kind of dirty throughout the schedule. It's kind of faulty how they did OKC, but my takeaway from that, I'm interested to see how OKC comes out, because if they have one of the top 5 hardest schedules to begin with, what does that probably let us know on the back end of their schedule, we all know what OKC may be this year, so I just wanted to kind of point that out a little bit, okay? So I also want to talk about the teams with the most amount of back-to-backs and the ones with the least amount. So the teams with the most amount of back-to-backs, it's tied between like 10 different teams, have 16. So I'm just going to name those teams, but remember they all have 16 games they have 16 back-to-backs. The Hawks, the Cavs, the Nuggets, the Rockets, the Clippers, the Bucks, the Pelicans, the Thunder, the Suns, the Kings, and the Wizards are all the teams with the most back-to-backs. Okay, so, excuse me. And then the teams with the least amount of back-to-backs are going to be the Boston Celtics, the Bulls, the Mavericks, the Lakers, the Wizards, and the Blazers. All those teams only have 13 back-to-backs. So, let's talk about that briefly. The teams with the most, obviously, it's going to affect probably teams that are a little bit older. But the younger teams shall be fine. I think it's interesting that Boston only has 13. Kind of sets up for them to win another 60 games this year, barring injury. Obviously, knock on wood. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. And then, so, also want to talk about the teams with the most televised games. The teams with the most televised games, I did the top 5 with the most and then the top 5 with the least. So the teams with the top 5 most games in the NBA are the Los Angeles Lakers at 39, the Golden State Warriors at 36, Boston at 34, Knicks at 34, Dallas and Phoenix tied at 5th with 30. And then the teams with the least, and rightfully so, as I named these teams, except one of the teams. One of the teams I got a problem with being on this list. But, so the teams with the least amount of games, it's a 3-way tie. These teams only have 4 games on national TV. It's the Portland Trail Blazers, Detroit Pistons, and the Toronto Raptors. Second, we got 3 teams tied with only 5 games on national TV. We got the Washington Wizards, the Chicago Bulls, and the Brooklyn Nets. Utah's at 3 with only 7 national televised games. Atlanta's at 4 with 8. And then the one I got the most problem with is number 5, the Orlando Magic, only got 9. And my next episode, I talk more about the Magic, talk more about the Hawks. Yeah, so tune in the next episode to hear more about that. But yeah, that kind of frustrated me about the Magic. I believe the Magic is an upcoming team. I personally love watching Paolo Banchero. I've been keeping up with Paolo since he was up in Seattle. And also he went to Duke. And I'm a Duke fan. So I'm a big fan of Paolo Banchero. And this last playoff run, he was hooping. Again, I'll talk more about them in my next episode. I'm not going to give away anything that I'm going to say about the Magic. But yeah, I'm frustrated about the Magic being on this list, to be honest with you. So the teams who had the largest basically margin increase in televised games, I'm going to give you the top 5 in that. I'm going to give you 2 in order. The Minnesota Timberwolves gained the most at 15, followed by the Thunder, followed by the Knicks with 9. The Thunder had 12. Sorry, I forgot to mention the Thunder's number, but they had 12. The Pacers had 8, and the Rockets got 7. Personally, I have nothing to say about that. Nothing wrong with it. I would obviously, the Lakers, Boston, Golden State, the Knicks. These are large brands, so I get why the Lakers and the Warriors are going to be on there. I don't want to give away too much. I don't want to give away too much of my opinion to you guys about teams, because obviously as the weeks go on, I'm deep diving into every team, so I don't want to say too much right now. So we'll just go to the next thing, because I was going to go on a tangent. I was going to go on a little rant. So something else that kind of jawned at me is that I seen something that said high televised games, or like high profile TV games. It said that teams wouldn't play the day before or the day after. Oddly enough, I kind of dug a little deep on a couple teams' schedule, and they kind of did the Thunder and Grizzlies dirty. The Thunder got screwed because in February, the Thunder on February 12th, they play the Heat, and then on the 13th, they play the Timberwolves at Minnesota. So they play at home against Miami on the 12th, and then they go to Minnesota on the 13th, and that's on TNT. And then they did it to them again in March 15th. They go at Detroit, then they play at Bucks on the 16th of March on ESPN. So I thought that was kind of messed up how they did the Thunder. The Thunder, again, they did the Thunder rotten. They don't play on opening night, they don't play on Christmas Day, and they don't play on MLK. Like, I don't understand why the Thunder didn't get more love, but also I understand, like, marketing wise, I get it. For TV reasons, I get it. You know, Oklahoma City, shout out to all my Oklahoma City fans and who live in Oklahoma, but you guys just are not a big market, so I get that. But we want to see good level basketball. As a basketball fan, I want to watch high level and great basketball. And I think we all can agree that the Thunder they're here. And they have some very exciting players. We want to watch good basketball. I think they play pretty good basketball. Sorry, I needed some water, man. My throat is dry. But, yeah, I just thought the Thunder got kind of done dirty throughout this whole thing. The Grizzlies also kind of got done dirty. 4 of their 9 nationally televised games are literally, they literally have 4 of their 9 nationally televised games. They literally play the next day. So, again, NBA doing them dirty. A really big special event that's going to happen in the NBA season, which I think is going to be dope if you didn't hear about the announcement. The Phoenix Suns will play the San Antonio Spurs on February 20th at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. All the times I give you guys are literally Eastern. So just to let you guys know, they're all Eastern times because I'm getting ready to give you guys a slew of games that are coming up. So they'll be all Eastern times. But they play at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time on February 20th. The Suns will play the Spurs on TNT, but it will be at University of Texas. So kind of like a homecoming for Kevin Durant. It should be a great game. I'm excited to watch that because we've never seen anything like that happen in the NBA. So I thought that was kind of cool. Another thing, speaking about the Spurs, another interesting thing I noticed, we kind of get Alperen Şengün versus Wemby 3 times within the first 10 games. So I thought that was kind of interesting. That's something I kind of wrote out. But I kind of just want to give you guys kind of a brief schedule, kind of. I'm going to give you guys the opening night. I'm going to give you Christmas Day. I'm going to give you MLK Day. And then also, the NBA is also doing a thing called Rival Week. They're doing Rival Week. And so I'm going to go over those matchups for that as well. But keep in mind, this is all Eastern time. So if you live on the West Coast or you live in, your mountain time or the Midwest, just keep that in mind as I'm giving you these numbers, okay? So opening night is Tuesday, October 22nd. Opens up, we got the Knicks versus Boston at 7:30 p.m. on TNT. Mind you, this is the last opening night for TNT, unfortunately. So Kenny, Chuck, Ernie, Shaq, this is it, So I'm interested to see if they do anything or have any special guests for that night. So they'll be opening us up for the very first game. The nightcap game will be Minnesota at the Lakers. That's at 10 p.m. And then so on Christmas Day, and I want to mind you guys, I will obviously be doing episodes from here on out. But after I do all my season outlooks, literally before the season tips off, I'll give you guys my predictions for opening night when we get there. So just want to let you guys know that. Don't want to really talk too much about that. Let's keep it moving. So Christmas Day. We get to wake up early. We got the Spurs at New York. I actually talked about this in my last pod. I talked about how I'm excited to watch Wemby play at MSG. Real basketball fans know that I ain't gonna say superstars like make their I'm in the NBA moment in New York, but you can look back in history. A lot of superstars play at MSG. They have massive performances. I'm hoping we get one of those from Wemby this year. We'll see if it's this year. Maybe it'll be in a couple years or something. But I'm excited to watch it. That's the first game. That's at 12 p.m. And that's going to be on ESPN. The next game after that, we got Minnesota, rematch of the Western Conference Finals. We got Minnesota at Dallas. That's at 2:30 p.m. On ABC. Then we got Philadelphia at Boston. That's at 5 p.m. That's on ABC. And then the 2 nightcap games, we got the Los Angeles Lakers going to the Golden State Warriors at 8 p.m. And then we got the Denver Nuggets going to Phoenix at 10. I was about to say 7:30. See, I'm on that West Coast time. It's at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, and that's going to be on ESPN. Then on MLK Day, kind of rubbed me the wrong way. No Atlanta Hawks on MLK Day. Thought that was kind of odd. Fun fact, I actually went to the Martin Luther King Museum in Atlanta years ago with my grandmother. So I understand what MLK meant to Atlanta. So playing on MLK Day, we got the Dallas Mavericks going to the Charlotte Hornets. That's at 12 p.m. Eastern. That's at 12 p.m. Yeah, that's 12 p.m. Eastern on NBA TV. And then we got the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Memphis Grizzlies. That's 2:30 p.m. Eastern, and that's on TNT. And then we got the Boston Celtics going to Golden State at 5 p.m. Eastern, and that's on TNT. I can't help but say the Eastern time. I don't know. I just can't help it. So I also want to go over the rivalry week. I think that's very interesting that the NBA is trying to do that. I think they're just trying to, give us something to look forward to, something for us to build towards, something to really try to capture new fans or even get old NBA fans back inclined into it. So I get it. It's a nice little marketing thing. I'm interested to see if anything really comes out of it. So there's 10 televised games going to be happening from January 21st to January 25th, and I'm just going to go over those games with you guys. So on the 21st, which is a Tuesday, we got the Knicks at the Brooklyn Nets. That's at 7:30. And remind you, this is all Eastern time. And then we got the nightcap. We got Philadelphia at Denver. That's at 10 p.m. on TNT. Wednesday, January 22nd, we got Minnesota at Dallas at 7:30. Then we get the nightcap, Golden State at Sacramento at 10 p.m. And then Thursday, January 23rd, we got Miami at Milwaukee at 7:30. Then we got Boston at Los Angeles at the Lakers, and that's at 10 p.m. Both of those games are also on TNT. Friday, January 24th, we got New Orleans at Memphis at 8 p.m., and that's on NBA TV. And then Saturday night, January 25th, we got Denver at Minnesota at 3 p.m. on ABC. We got Boston at Dallas at 5:30 on ABC. And then the nightcap is the Lakers at Golden State at 8:30 p.m. on ABC. So that is rivalry week. Then I'll also want to a couple other dates to keep in mind are players going back to their old teams. We got Paul George going to the Clippers November 6th. Klay Thompson going back to the Warriors, which is going to be November 12th. DeMar DeRozan going back to the Bulls January 12th. Mikal Bridges playing against the Nets January 21st. Obviously, we all know the biggest one out of all that is Klay going back to the Warriors. We know that's going to be a very emotional game for him. Honestly, you might want to take his prop bets, his shot attempts over. If anybody that sports bet, take his shot attempts over because he's probably going to be trying to, because, he probably feels some type of way. The Warriors didn't pay him what he wanted, and they made him feel some type of way, So I know he's going to be motivated that game. Some key dates in the 2024-2025 NBA season calendar. I just want to kind of go over these with you guys very briefly. October 22nd, the regular season starts. November 2nd, the NBA Mexico City game, we got the Miami Heat playing the Washington Wizards in Mexico City. That's November 2nd. November 12th, we got the NBA Cup, formerly known as the NBA Cup. They named the name to the Empress. They named it to the Empress. They renamed the cup to Empress NBA Cup. That starts November 12th. December 17th, the Empress NBA Cup. I'm going to call it the in-season tournament. The in-season tournament Cup championship game is December 17th. January 23rd and 25th, the NBA has Paris games. They got the Spurs playing the Pacers, so Wimpy gets to go back home. I think that's going to be very exciting. And then February 6th, NBA trade deadline is on that date. Trade deadline ends at 3 p.m. Eastern, so 12 p.m. Pacific time. February 14th to 16th, we all know what that is. That's the NBA All-Star Game. This year, it's going to be in San Francisco, California. Next year, it's going to be in Los Angeles, California, and I plan on being in the building for that one because I said in my last pod, and I'm going to keep tooting the horn, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I'm right, I'm going to tell you guys. I said it. And it's going to be in LA next year, and I believe that is going to be LeBron James' last All-Star game. That's just my personal opinion. And when I talk about my season preview about the Lakers, I'll talk about it more in depth. So that's the All-Star game. April 13th, we got the NBA regular season ends. April 15th to April 18th, we got the NBA play-in tournament. And April 19th, we got the NBA playoffs. And so that's the NBA schedule. That's all. I ask you, again, leave in the comments if you felt like I missed out on some dates, if you felt like I missed out on some information, if you like some of the information I said. If some of it was insightful, or even stuff that I just said about some of the players that I was talking about. If I missed some information about them, or something you would like to add, or something, or even a question you may have for me, please leave a like or a comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Remember, next episode will be a season outlook. And until then, PJ out.